the Venus Project will present an innovative social design. Its primary concern is the well-being of people, enabling everyone to have a high standard of living while protecting the planet's ecosystem.
We will explain and illustrate many proposals, total city systems, canals that bring rising seawaters into below sea level deserts, cities in the sea for reclamation of our ocean environment, and other exciting scenarios for global redesign.
This is what you must do. Bring all the nations together. I'll tell you how later on. First, you bring all the nations together as one nation, and they have to agree to take care of the oceans and the earth. If they do that, great. If you don't do that, it won't work. If you have any one nation in charge, it won't work. So what you have to do is install the Venus Project. What is the Venus Project? It's a way of thinking that the words we use, all the words we use, were given us by our society. Your mother said table, light, glass, papa, mama. Every word you use comes from your culture. If you're brought up in the South, you have attitudes about the black people, Afro-Americans. That's part of the South. If a person comes from the South, from that region, and they're racist, don't get mad at them. They were shaped by that culture. We work on the kids. Kids will play with anybody. Blacks, Orientals, anybody. It's when mother comes over and says, you're a Lutheran, you don't play with that Catholic. Mother means well, but she doesn't know the answers. So before anyone can raise children, they have to go to school to learn how. We don't accept individual parents doing their own thing to their kids, saying, you're a Jew, you don't associate with Gentiles. We can't have that. It won't work. I believe that all people need the same thing. They need clean air, clean water. A relevant education means education about the world that we know of, not the world we don't know anything about. Heaven and hell. That's something that nobody has ever proven. So we don't teach religion. We teach what different people believe all over the world. When the kid says, which is right, we don't answer that. We say that's what they believe. But we go along with putting to test everything that people believe we put to test. And if it doesn't work out, we set it aside. In other words, if you say that people can live without water, we say, where's your demonstration? They all need water. Mm-hmm. Plants need the sunshine. They need the soil. They need water. If you don't give them those things, they cannot grow of themselves. Nothing can work of itself. Human beings do not have any interior knowledge or creativity. This applies to me also. Whatever I say about people, I'm in that thing together. So if I would say, I don't know enough about it to give you a decision, that's what I mean. So if the things we haven't investigated, I would say, I don't know enough about it. And we have to research it further. Now, if you do research from the world and you find out that we have enough resources to support so many people, then we must teach people what that means. If you have 10 kids and he has 10 kids, you're going to wind up in mass starvation unless he comes up with a new way of growing food to take care of that. So children will be brought up to know, like an ocean liner, how do they know how much water to take in? How do they know how much food to buy the amount of passengers? If they have 1,000 passengers and people take 2 showers a day, you have to have so much water. Not what you think, what is required. You know what I mean? And if you provide for those needs, they can have a decent trip. But there are things we can't control, icebergs. You can hit an iceberg and sink in 10 minutes. So if he says that's too bad, we can't do anything with that. But if he comes up and says, if you make a double hull with flotation chambers, the ship won't sink. We can use that. But we can't think there ought to be an answer to that. We can't do anything with that. So we reject it. The city we have proposed is a city that's all together, meaning New York City, every building is a different size. Everybody gets off at 4:30, so your freeways are going to be choked up. But if you stagger the calendar, so 1/7 of the population gets off every other day instead of Saturday and Sunday. You can't teach what you think we ought to do. You only teach the Venus Project. The Venus Project says your freeways will not work if everybody gets off at 5 o'clock. They'll be jammed. And during the Saturday and Sunday, the beaches will be jammed, so they make more highways. You have to get everybody off a different day of the week, so it's never crowded. Wow. You don't have to build all the freeways and motorways. You understand? When you put stuff in the soil, a melon grows slowly. But if you cultivate melon tissue, you cultivate a big melon, you cut it up. Instead of selling hamburgers, you know what an extrusion is? You squeeze metal out in a certain shape, and it's long, and then you cut it up, and you got a product on each one. That's called an extrusion. We extrude homes.
There's like, as you read it, but there's like, wow.
We extrude houses, and we cut them up. There's no bricklayers, and we don't paint the house a given color. We have glass beads in the ceiling. You know what Scotch light is? Mm-mm. When you're driving at night, you see those bright signs. It's your headlights that makes it bright. Oh. It's feedback. There's no electric connection. Oh, wow. So all the houses have glass beads, and there's a lighting system to give off blue, green, yellow. So whatever color you want your house, you press. You move out, somebody else presses a different color. Mm. The glass beads will reflect light at a different angle. So you press that one if you want your house blue or green. Then you have zone air conditioning. He says it's too hot, you say it's too cold. So you press zone air conditioning. Where you're sitting, it's a certain temperature. Where you're sitting, it's another temperature. Zone cooling, you know what I mean? And zone heating in the future. If you change your position, you can change the heat. That they have to satisfy everybody. How do you satisfy everybody? You can't with air conditioning alone. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it has to evolve. Like now the needs of there's way more people now, so you need to make it individual.
If you have an idea,
experience.
let's say they can improve society. You say, I have a good idea. If only people would work together, how do you get them to work together?
You get them to start thinking the
And
same.
if you don't come up with the answer, we can't use it. Do you understand? The person, there ought to be a better way to light this place. We can't do anything with that. Mm-hmm. Now, there are gun clubs in America. You can't undo those clubs. Because when I was a kid, the cowboys had 2 guns. And they never sat down and discussed anything. They get rid of the opposition. That's what armies are. Armies are to keep American way all over the world, as near as we can. So all nations use that system. And all nations are corrupt. Now how do you get nations to work together? First you have to talk to people and get the majority of people over on your side. When will they do that? When they lose their job and they can't get another job. Right now is the wrong time, but talk to as many people as you can, to those that you can reach. But the rest will come in later. Like if the Amish people, you know who they are? Mm-hmm. It's a certain religious group, looks at our cities and says, we don't want to live in this city, we're Amish. We'd like to have our own community. We will build a community for them. We'll build the houses that are free. But if they say, I like wood, I don't like your synthetic materials. I like the touch of wood, the smell of wood. If it catches fire, you have to deal with it. You understand?
Yeah.
Eventually, people will come around to our system because it's the nearest thing to justice. It has nothing to do with Fresco's wishes.
Yeah.
I don't design the cities. I merely suggest that as far as I know, at this time, the round city above your head is the nearest thing because we only make 1/8 of the system and then reproduce it. Instead of each architect designing each building a different size, all the windows are different, all the doors are different. You can't house everybody on Earth using that system. The only way you can do it is by making standard parts. That's why Henry Ford said, I don't care what color you want your car to be as long as it's black. he painted all his cars to keep the price down instead of all these different colors. No, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying what he did.
It's an idea.
So what we have to do is learn what shapes human behavior. What makes a serial killer? That's all. He's born that way. That doesn't tell us anything.
Oh, thank you.
What makes him that way? Well, if he's brought up in the South, he might want to kill a black man, hang him upside down. That's an example to the other blacks. Don't ever stare at my wife. Look at the ground when you talk to a woman. Because black people have a tendency to want to screw you. Means he was brought up that way. Don't get mad at him. See if you can turn him around. If you can't, did I tell you how you turn people around yet? One way is if a guy says, we ought to get rid of all the foreigners, saying, oh, that's a great idea. It doesn't go far enough, though. They get the ear. If you attack, you lose it. But then say it doesn't go far enough. What do you mean?
It doesn't go far enough. I like it.
Never use logic or reason, because the people are not logical or reasonable. My mother wasn't reasonable, but I'm not going to say, after all, she's my mother. No, it says honor thy father and mother, and I say no, honor anybody worthy of honor, not your father and mother, if they're wrong. If your mother tells you stay away from blacks and Orientals, she means well, but that's the way she was brought up. She's not good or bad. I used to train dogs. Did I tell you this before? To lead the blind. I used to walk with a white stick. Oh, I trained a dog to lead the blind. A 60-year-old woman walked over and said, what a nice dog. I said, no, that dog is not nice. I trained it to lead the blind. I could have trained it to tear people to pieces.
Wow.
If you know. So, a dog is neither good nor bad. Depends on the training you give it. Same with a human being. They're not good or bad. They're different in different countries. And when you go to Japan, they teach the Japanese people everything bad about America. They show Americans raping Japanese women to get you to enlist in the army. In America, we show Japanese raping American women. In Germany, it's the same. So Hitler burned all the books that disagreed with his teaching. So he didn't have too much opposition. All you saw was Heil Hitler.
Yeah. No competition.
No competition.
No competition.
Right.
Yeah.
And we don't have competition either.
Yeah.
But we do have research to find the answers. And if we can't find the answers, we publish Answer Unknown. So everybody is given the best education. There's no Ivy League universities where you pay $40,000 a year. It's all free, all education. Food and clothing are given to everybody. But you don't own anything in the Venus Project. We build houses, lots of them, but you live in them, and you furnish the inside what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And your training has to do with how you furnish your inside.
Yeah.
There's no artist design furniture. We have anatomists and physiologists that measure your body, how to seat, getting up and down. Only physiologists design furniture. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Not artists.
Wow.
Artists just draws a pretty picture of a chair and you can't be comfortable. And cooking is determined by nutritional experts. They study the food you need instead of making a kitchen in every home. That's good for the money system. You sell a lot of kitchenware. We make dining areas. We got Swedish food, Jewish food, Greek food, big dining areas. But we don't have a kitchen in every home. But we have a dumbwaiter. You know what that is? It's a box that comes up to your apartment. If you want food from the food center, you tell them what you want, and it's delivered. A refrigerator with the backside open too. So they put the food in for a week for a family of 5. See, they put it in the back of the refrigerator, which opens. They don't have to come in your house and open the refrigerator and put the food in. Your hot water heater is accessible from the outside. So if something goes wrong with it, it reports itself to the maintenance department, and they work on it on the outside. They don't have to come in your house and work on it. Do you understand that?
Yeah, so it's less invasive.
Yes.
But the hot air and the air conditioning would be pumped from one source. I mean, if we
Yes.
get that far.
Yeah.
There's air
don't have
There's
conditioning
an essential
underground.
system for the entire city.
We can't permit you to live in a Japanese style house.
I don't know if you were able to.
Well, Japan asked me, if you design our cities, can you make the roof Japanese style? And the French want the Eiffel Tower style, you know. And you can't do that. You have to teach one language that's not subject to interpretation. That means chemistry, mathematics. When engineers talk to each other, they don't take what you say and interpret it. You never have that. You can't have a democracy where everybody participates, because everybody starts out different, because they come from different places. You know what I mean? You believe in 5 kids, she doesn't want any kids. It all depends on the way you're brought up. So how do you decide that? By how productive the world is. You do a productive study of how much food America can produce. That determines how many children we can have. Not Fresco. And we do a survey of how many heart disease cases there are in America, how many tuberculosis, how many venereals. That determines how many hospitals we build. You don't just build hospitals, hope that business will be all right. There's no business, nobody makes money. But everybody has access to the necessities of life. Now, if you say you want a pet tiger and a pet elephant, well, the pet elephant, what do you want the pet for? Pets, all animals carry disease, and dogs and pets carry all kinds of fevers and disease. I said, can I have pets? If you live alone in some faraway place, yes. But if you live in the community, it's going to hurt people. When you get an infection against scarlet fever, not only protects you, but the other kids too. Now, if the doctors say this is the best approach we know of up to now, we'll use that until a better approach comes. You understand? There's nobody in charge. You can't be objective in the money system. You know what I mean? So you have to do away with that. There has to be free access, and you have to produce. We produce 1,000 different wrenches today. They all do the same thing. In the future, we'll produce 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Why the hell produce thousands of them? It costs more. It costs you more. So build each house different, it's going to cost you more. If you build a dome, the wind blows over it. If you build a flat roof,
a hurricane can tear the roof off. In South Florida, in South Miami, lots of houses were ruined by a hurricane. But one dome can stand 600 miles an hour wind. But we make domes slightly different, where the parts can go together and make it look different. But the interior, if you're an anatomist, say a doctor, surgeon, we give you a file on surgery in your house. We give you a big file of different techniques all over the world. Now his interior, he's an architect, will have a history of architecture, building design, everything related to what you want, where you are. But you'll probably marry a girl that's an architect. And you probably will marry a girl that's into your field, because you'd have more to talk about. You don't want your wife to put a big bow in the kid's head where you say, what's that for? If you have an auto accident and they wheel you in a hospital, those earrings are in the way. But in the future, the earrings will have chips in them. And when you wheel a person into a hospital, those chips will bring out your records. So the doctor says, I see.
Like useful things, like they have a purpose.
Everything has to have a purpose. So girls will wear long hair, short hair, whatever they want. They will dress the same as men, pants or skirts. Men will wear skirts or pants. The clothing breathes. When you raise your arm, it doesn't pull. It yields. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
When you twist, the fabric doesn't give. Everything will be designed by an anatomist. Do you know what I mean by that? There'll be no different types of bows on packages. There'll be no ornament on buildings. A horse's head on top of the building. In an earthquake, they fall and kill people. Gargoyles, you know what I mean? So the buildings will be simple, clean, and honest. They'll look like what they do. You know what I mean by that? All right, now. You will want a house with 50 rooms. But let's say you have a collection of the world's art. You've been collecting it during the money system. We come to visit you and we say, would you mind putting your paintings on a global tour so everybody can enjoy them? He said, no, they're mine. So we put that in the morning news. He said, no, they're mine. And your friends will come and visit you. Why don't you let everybody enjoy your paintings? You know what I mean? You don't twist anybody's arm. You just quote what they say. There are ways to do it without hurting people. We have no armies, no navies, no prisons, no police. Police carry out orders from the money people. They're the only ones that have things you can steal. People with a lot of money have things you can steal. But if people are brought up to understand the system and learn how to go to the access center and access whatever they want. People have things, possessions. If you make a painting, that's yours. But you can't sell it. You can give it to people you like. You know what I mean? Yeah. If he has a hobby of grinding diamonds into a certain form, he can give them away, but he can't sell them. There's no money. Even if you have drugs, you can't sell them, because there's no money. So nobody can marry a guy because he's rich. No girl can, because she gets the same access men have to anything. Women are not treated differently. They're treated the same. They tell you there's good language and bad language. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as beauty either. Although you're brought up to believe that. In Africa, a guy put a bone through his nose, he looks beautiful with that bone through it. Here it would look ridiculous. So we discourage all forms of activity that does not actually help you. Like women will not wear earrings unless they have transistors in them or something to help that woman. Just as you got a fever, you got to tend to that. And food will be administered by nutritional experts. And if they don't know enough about it, they won't put out that food. There'll be no prize fights, because in punching a guy in the head damages his brain. Not sometimes, always. And smoking cigarettes produce cancer, may take 10 or 20 years, but it always produces cancer or heart disease, smoking. So the reason the government sells cigarettes is because they get taxes on it. They make money. The government doesn't give a shit about your health. When the government can get stuff cheaper in a foreign country, they ship it out, the jobs. They don't care about people being unemployed. If we keep automating more and more factories, which we're doing, people will have less purchasing power, and the system will die. You don't need to shoot anybody or have a revolution. The public has to be displaced, lose their home, their car, then they say, hey, what's wrong? That's the time when they'll press for social change. Not now, not yet. But it's happening all over the world, not just this country. Greece, Italy, France are having economic problems.
Interested in having one of your buildings built in like Brooklyn or something?
No.
He never was.
Not even a building, just like,
Won't work.
what do you think would work? If
It's
someone wanted to do
private
something, if someone wanted to,
If somebody wanted to do
to help
something, we
those
would like
people in
a
those
research.
projects, a research center built in that community.
It's patchwork and it won't work.
Mm.
If somebody wanted to make a nice community for themselves, like a lot of people come to Jacque and say, can you make us a community, because when the system falls, we want to have a nice, sustainable community, and with a wall around it. And he says, today people know how to put rockets over your wall. If they knock on your gate and they say, please give me some food just for my kids, and you give them some food for their kids when the rest of the community, the outside is falling apart, you're going to have 10,000 people at your gate.
Yeah.
We're not interested in just
Patchwork.
feeding
You want to
the
inform.
poor
So
in
the money would be
cities.
better spent creating an information center like the Globe, like that mock-up you guys have, that inform people.
Why don't you learn the ideas of the dome, because it uses the least amount of materials to cover the most space. And why do you want that? So you can house everybody on Earth. And it's very, very strong. Your skull is in a dome. And it gets stronger with age, concrete. And the environmentalists don't want to cut down the forest, but everybody lives in wooden houses. They live in wooden houses. So when you live in a dome and you appreciate the functionality, how it works, then that becomes beautiful to you. I see these old homes, like some people want these Victorian homes and everything. I think that's not beautiful. I think it's old values that they perpetuate at a standard that they thought was good at that point. Mm-hmm. But it's not anymore. So you change what you think is.
You have legs. If you're born with legs, they're not for walking. You use it for walking. You know what I mean?
Wow.
There's no purpose to life. No purpose to ears, hearing and all. It takes air to conduct sound. Without air, you have no sound conduction. So you don't have teeth to chew with. There are animals called bats. They have terrible vision, but they can avoid insects and everything. Like they emit a sound, and the sound bounces back. So I want to make things like this for the blind people. They wear it, and it emits sound so they can hear a table in front of them, instead of walk with a white cane. Everything you feel and say and do is learned. You're brought up in England, you speak like an Englishman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People slit their eyes open.
You understand
and
that?
open
Yeah.
their eyes up
Right.
so it's like other people.
When people say, what about human nature? That's what they tell you, that this person's hardworking, he's lazy. No such thing as a lazy person. A lazy person is a person who was not rewarded for effort.
Wow.
You know what that means? If a child cleans your car, you walk over and say, gee, thanks a lot. Would you like to go to a movie? Reward that behavior. You say, when you get through cleaning the car, cut the goddamn lawn. And then the kid
It's not
hides
incentive.
when he sees you coming.
When you say, oh, you missed
Come
the
out
spot.
there, you lazy. All our attitudes are learned. you inherit nothing. If you don't understand that, tell people that. No matter how many years they spoke Chinese, he has to go to school and learn the language. No American baby was born speaking English. He learns whatever language is around. And nobody invented language. They made sounds when they saw certain boo-boo. Okay, boo-boo, yeah, that's the name. And over the years, all those different sounds, or four sounds, the man ate fruit. And went, He put something else in on it. That meant it was bad to him. So they used symbols. Later, they made sounds. So the birds, that's what they call it. Birds don't sing. They said they're singing for me and my gal. Birds don't sing. They make certain sounds. Man says it's a songbird. There's no such thing as songbird. I'll tell you something that is different. Man, this includes me, cannot think or reason. All that's bullshit. The reason I know that is because I asked Eskimos years ago, real Eskimos that live in northern Alaska, if you can have anything you want, what would it be? They never asked for a Mercedes or a twin-engine Beechcraft. They always ask for a straight javelin and lots of seals. They can only ask for that which they experience.
Wow.
That's what I mean by man can't think or reason.
I never
Do you
saw
love
it
the
before.
girl? Yeah, well, get married.
You
That's
don't
the
even know what that
institution.
is.
There's a guy with a white collar. And I pronounce you man and wife. Where the hell did he come from?
They all think of it within the monetary system. I mean, now people are talking about no money because Jacque introduced it, really,
Yeah.
through documentaries. And they don't even know where it came from, a lot of them. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't figure out what is it that causes war in the society and eliminate that, that's what Jacque looked for. What is it that causes crime? What is it that causes aberrant behavior? Find the causes and design a society with those things out, you know? If you don't want people stealing from you, then everybody has to have access to things, everybody. Not some, the best, and some, not just as good, because then you're going to cause problems again. So we know what it is in the society that we don't want, and we know what the root causes are, the Venus Project, because Jacque's done the work. Nobody has done the work. They say the words, but they haven't done the work to redesign something else, so those problems aren't in the society. So unless you lay out a method of eliminating war, of eliminating poverty, harmony between people, love, those are empty words, because you can't superimpose laws on people. Be harmonious, don't steal, love thy neighbor. Those never worked.
Yeah.
So this is
No,
quite
it's-
different.
Einstein, when I was a kid, first thing I said to him, do you believe in God? He said, which one? And I asked him if he believed in truth. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. Give me an example. So I said, well, certain things are a certain way. He said, like what? It's specific.
Yeah.
So I said, well, this is smooth. He said, you really think so, don't you? I said, yes, I can see it's smooth. He put it under a microscope and he blew it up and it looked very rough. I said, is that what it's really like? He says, no. He blew it up more and it looked rougher. So I said, what's it really like? He says, we can't see things as they really are, only as our receptors can pick them up. He said, there's radio waves moving through this room right now. You don't sense them. There's germs on the table. You don't sense them. So how can you be conscious? You don't be as conscious as your receptors. You know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
If your receptors can't pick it up, then it doesn't exist. That's why nations disagree and people disagree.
You used to say, too, when somebody comes up and says, I'm conscious, he said, oh, you are. How fast is your blood moving through your bloodstream? Where is your kidney? You know what I mean?
But you don't even know
They
how
use
your
these
own
words.
system works. How can you even
Right.
try to explain anything else when you don't even know the basic information of your
That's why
own
they can't be
your own
such a
technology?
thing as consciousness.
Wow.
There can only be limited awareness. You know what I mean?
What you
Yeah.
learn.
Exposure.
Yeah, higher consciousness. If you want kids to expand their consciousness, show them pictures of insects, centipedes, moths, bees, different types of insects. The more you show them, the broader their what you call consciousness. But that people don't realize that each culture says this is the greatest country on earth. France is the greatest country on earth. Germany is the greatest country on earth. All bullshit. They're all full of shit. That's what I'm trying to say. And the Venus Project, you can reach people if you don't attack. You know what that means? If a guy says, we ought to get rid of all the foreigners, say that's a wonderful idea, but it doesn't go far enough. That gets his he says, what do you mean? Then you can talk to him.
You gotta get their attention first in like a non-aggressive, like non-offensive way.
Yeah, well, sometimes the guy says, the niggers are taking over the country. You say, that's a great idea, but it doesn't go far. Don't attack. You know what I mean? Don't attack the white man, don't attack anybody. As long as you know where they're coming from, they can't help but be what they are. The Bible was written hundreds of years ago, and it's inaccurate. There's a lot of mistakes in the Bible. It says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that others might have eternal life in heaven and not perish. Well, if you lived eternally in heaven, say you're 4,000 years old, you wouldn't want to talk to anybody anymore, because you've heard it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be the most painful experience, eternal life. To the priest, I said, he was telling me how smart God was. He makes it rain to make the plants grow. I said, you just insulted God. He can make the plants grow without the rain. So I said, why does it rain at sea if it rains to make the plants grow? He said, hold your hand on it, beat the shit out of it. He was honest. He said, I really never thought of that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
See, but people have their own opinion about all kinds of things.
Feel a hard time saying they don't know something.
2 priests and 1 nun came to one of my lectures, several of the lectures. I said, Father, what are you doing here? He said, I want to hear how you think. Well, if you learn that, you'll leave the church. He says, never. They both left the church. I can't talk to you unless you're honest with me. You don't know where all this came from. You assume that God made it all. Or that's what you read somewhere. Or your father believed that and taught you that. If he's honest, he says, yes, that's true. Then he says, where did it come from? Then you explain it to him. He explained, in the rocks we have animals that have died thousands of years ago, and you can see the changes all along, how evolution produced man. But if you don't go by that, say God made man and a woman, and he made a snake walk upright. The snake used to, according to the Bible, walk upright. And he tempted Eve to eat the fruit of knowledge, and he kicked them both out of heaven. Paradise, he called it. Now, if he's all-knowing, he would know. It says God is all-knowing and he loves you. He wouldn't have kicked them out. He would have known that what else could they do. You know, God is such an asshole. He's made in the image of man. He creates floods, disease when he gets mad at you. This is not God. This is a monster made by man.
It's not love.
I talk to priests that way. And the priest says, don't you believe in anything? Yes, I believe in knowledge. The accumulation of knowledge and testing it. And maybe next year somebody will disprove it, I believe. And I'll go on and learn. So we update people on television. We don't run the same soap operas over and over again. We outrun new movies with new knowledge continuously, so the public is prepared for change.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Our
That
society
people would
changes.
expect.
Every year you can see the change. Here it changes well, a lot of things never change. Getting married, divorce stays the same. Right and wrong is the same as it's been 100 years ago. But today we know that different cultures consider different things correct and other things we believe in wrong. If you go to the Arab world, guy has 10 wives, if he can afford it. But it's normal in the Arab world to have many wives. But you say, you're wrong, you should have one wife. You're trying to superimpose your values on that culture. And your values are given you by your culture.
Mm.
And every culture teaches people, you should be proud to be a Frenchman. I'm proud to be a Swede. I'm proud to be a Jew. I'm proud to be that. All that's bullshit. It separates people. The separation of people is the worst thing you can do. And expect harmony.
Mm.
They say, I love nature. Nature lovers say that to me. I said, every big fish is eating every little fish. That's the way they live. And we eat animals. We kill thousands of animals. What do you mean by harmony in nature? Hurricanes wipe out thousands of people on the islands. Is that harmony? Every big fish is eating little fish. What do you mean by harmony? The lions tear zebras to pieces. They don't just eat them. You know, they tear them to pieces.
Wow.
So I said, what do you mean by harmony? I said, I love nature. It's so harmonious. You have to point out what isn't harmonious. Say, what about children run over by a Mack truck? Well, you got to be careful. No, the Mack truck is badly designed. It should be sonar on the Mack truck. It goes out and hits a child and comes back and the brakes go on. Technological solutions.
To human
Not
problems.
saying, I guess that's the nature of things. No. Nature is cruel. It has lightning strikes people and animals on the farm. It doesn't care whether you're a Lutheran or an atheist. Lightning will strike both. See what I mean?
The hurricane doesn't go over the church.
A hurricane doesn't do that. Go around the building. A bus full of nuns on a slippery highway will slip just like a bus full of atheists.